throw that into the mute group as well. I'm gonna trim it a little bit. And again, if you're good at scratching, you don't fucking need to trim. But if you're bad at scratching, you'll still probably definitely need to trim, frankly. Actually, if you're good at scratching, you'll need to trim sometimes, just not as often, because it will probably take less time to just re-record the sound if it's a short sound. Oh, that sounds kind of good. That one's still in poly, but... But I'm still going to set it to, I'm still going to set it to mono, just to make everything consistent. So I'm going to try to record this a couple of different ways, or maybe just one. We're going to see what sticks. So I'm going to show you some of the different methods of recording, including the kind of locked in and not locked in things. So first, I'm going to try locked in. And so we want to figure out what the tempo is. The best way to do that will just be for me to play some of these samples and suss the tempo out from there, pretty much. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a sense for it, and then I'm going to hold tap tempo and try to tap in that rhythm that I've just gotten locked into. Yeah, it would be more efficient if the tap tempo button let you actually tap the tempo on there, which you can in other models. But on this one, I think this is kind of the way you have to go. So it looks like, obviously I'm not perfect, I'm not a machine, so there's going to be some variation, but we're somewhere in the 130 BPM range is what I just tapped in. It was 131.2. So I'm going to turn on that timing correct, and it's off, but I'm going to set it to eighth notes, and so I'm going to hold that note repeat just to see how these samples are falling into that. So I think it's a little slow. I'm going to, as you can see, when I hold tap tempo, this is another one of those things where there are two different values, and so I'm going to hit left. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, fine, maybe I can't change it that way. So I'm just going to scroll up. I had seen the number 137 show up while I was tapping the tempo in, so I'm going to try that now. See how that goes. Note repeat. That's a little bit fast, I think, so I'm going to scale it back. I'm holding tap tempo and scrolling back now. So that's how I know that I am now, these samples are in time with the metronome as it will be set. Yeah, actually, you know what? At first, I'm going to record without a metronome just to show you that, because that's what I'm used to doing. That feels more natural to me. So basically, you got this main thing right here: sequence, track, sequence. So now you're looking at sequence 1. And what are the characteristics of sequence 1? Well, those characteristics can be found under params. We're now looking at the params of that sequence. So sequence loop, first one, last equals end, of course. Sequence length, this is very important. Here's the length that it is now, and here I can adjust it. So it was 2 bars. Let's make it a classic wrap 16 bars. Now this will be the number of bars. I'm sorry, the tripod is kind of spazzing out right now. Never really done this before. So the 16 bars. Oh yeah, and then you have to hit do it. It's like, do you really want to increase the length of the sequence? Yes, I do. I told you. So yeah, the 16 bars isn't as like a precise number of bars isn't as important if you're going to be going without a metronome, if you're going to be freestyling it. In fact, in that case, what I would recommend it would just be to set the metronome to a ridiculously high number, because that way you can just go for as long as you want to go. It's not like it's going to loop up perfectly anyway. The number of bars is more important if you're trying to get it to like loop up perfectly. So I just set it to 96 now. That's going to go on for a long time. I can stop whenever I want. Because if you're freestyling it, you're not going to be on that metronome, or at least the odds are heavily against it. Which means that, you know, if I was set to 16 bars and it cycled back to 1, it would be ending off beat, and the loop would just sound fucking weird. In fact, I really don't work on loops on here at all very much to begin with. I feel like, you know, make the track what it needs to be, make the track long, make it what it needs to be, make it play straight through. Some people would rather, like, you know, loop it up so that they can have an uninterrupted experience of like building on the track as they go, and that totally makes sense. I don't know. My tracks are just a little too like amorphous for that to work generally. So if you want to, then I'm going to hit sequence just so I see that I'm at the beginning of sequence 1. So you see this 1.1 right here. That's like measures. That's showing us where in the sequence we are in terms of measures. So, you know, that's measure 1, and so this is going to go like 1 2 3 4 2, 1 2 3 4 3, 1 2 3 4 4. I think there are other time signature settings. So yeah, in fact, if we went to params and then sequence length time signature, you can change this. Yeah, 7 4 4 4 4. I bet I could change this too. Yeah. So you can change the time signature, and as you see, it's per bar too. So I believe you could set a different time signature for every bar and switch it up, which is also something that I've not taken enough advantage of. I have, again, free-handed different time signatures, but I really haven't taken advantage too much of the MPC's ability to guide you into different time signatures. So and that's really about the extent of my knowledge of like the sequence parameters. So then I want to start this. So another thing I want to check is, so I said I was going to do this take without a metronome. So metronome, there's a metronome button. Click that. Count in, off. We're not going to count in. In play, no. In record, no. So those are the 3 important metronome aspects. Right now, we're not going to have metronome anywhere. I'm just going to start this sequence and fucking go. Let me remember what it was again. I'm just going to do some shit like that. It's really not too important. In order to record, to start recording, just hitting record will not do it. As you can see, nothing happening. You have to hit play and record simultaneously, and that will start recording from the beginning. So then if I want to listen back to that, which as you could hear, that was a little sloppy. That's just how the fuck it is, Adon. Sometimes it's a little sloppy. Okay, rhythm is hard. I'm not a fucking drummer. I'm an electronic percussionist. But if you want to listen back to that from the start, there's the play start button. That will play whatever sequence you're on from the start. It's very simple. It's very simple. So this play button, if I just hit play right now, you know, it's going to play from that place where I ended because there's still space left on the sequence because I made the sequence 96 bars long. So if I hit play and then I hit stop, play, stop. But then play start, 3, 2, 1. So, and then I stopped that. So yeah, you know, as I said, we're going to experiment with the settings here. That was a little sloppy. So I'm going to hit erase, undo, and that will erase or undo whatever the last thing you did within the sequence was. This button. Yeah, so you got to be careful with it because it'll give you the option. You know, if I hit erase, undo, it'll say undo, press do it. And I do it. And that's it. That's done. I just erased that performance. So, you know, it gives you the ability to think about it for a second, but, you know, you got to really think about it because once it's done, it's done. So, yeah, so I've undone that, and now I'm going to set it to actually be locked in. But I'm going to do that to a metronome. I'm not going to use the note repeat as a way of cheating that. So I'm going to hit timing correct. I'm going to hit timing correct. God damn it. There we go. And yeah, so that's set to 1/8. Okay, great. So the funny part is actually that changes things because since I had that on, I had forgotten that I had that on. That last recording that I just made might have been time corrected to the 8th notes, which is funny because in that case, yeah, the playback should have sounded slight. Well, sometimes timing correct does sound sloppy. Sometimes it does. That's one of the reasons why I suggested earlier that you shouldn't always use it. So yeah, that was a mistake. That was, you know, fucking contrary to the lesson I was trying to teach. But anyway, we're gonna try it now with a metronome. So I'm hitting metronome, and I am going to do count in. Yes. So I have to just go down with the cursor. Count in. Yes. Record only. Yes, I don't want it while playing. And then in play, no, don't want it while playing. In record, yes, I'm going to record to a metronome. So then back to the sequence, or you can go whatever. I mean, you can record the sequence without being on the sequence screen. If you're hitting record, then it's gonna do the record thing. We'll record and play. So yeah, now we will try that out with the count in, and I'm going to freehand it to the metronome and let the timing correct, then put things in place. Okay, so you could hear that clicking in the background the whole time. So yeah, the thing that gets wonky with this, with using the timing correct and the metronome, is that if you're like off from, I don't know what it is, like I think, you know, obviously it rounds up the timing correct, so it moves the sound to the nearest 8th note is what I have it set to now. So you know, if the sound would actually sound better farther away, or like if I hit it at a place that was, you know, too far away from the 8th note that I would want to land on, and it accidentally landed, let's say, on one before, things can end up in the wrong place, which is one of the reasons why also maybe on the next demonstration, I will then set the timing correct to a faster setting, because I actually had it on the slowest one, which is the one that could end up putting things in the chunkiest, weirdest places because it has the fewest options. But so let's hit play start and hear what that sounded like. So you can hear right off the bat, it missed the first note entirely, the first beat entirely. Like, watch this. In fact, the first measure. Let me double check. Yeah, it says it counted in. I might have miscounted the count in. Maybe I waited for 8 bars instead of 4. Oops. But anyway. So you see, I'm going to erase undo and then do it. So as you can see, it's a little awkward, and that's in part because of the nature of the samples that I chose, the fact that they, there's some human variance in each of them, and there's variance in terms of where I had them trimmed to, where the samples started. So, if you have one sample that starts very hard right in the middle of a drum beat and one that starts slightly before, they could be at odds with each other in the way that they sound if they're juxtaposed against each other in a recording. So the design of your samples as well as the way that you're recording them will both affect the overall flow of things. So I'm going to try that again, but with the timing correct. Timing correct. Set timing correct. Set to 30-second notes, third notes, triplets. So that means that the notes can land just about anywhere and they will be locked into place there. And let's see if that makes a difference in the way that it sounds. I'm going to go back to sequence. Oh yeah, it's not counting in. I don't know why that is. Okay, metronome, count in, record only. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm recording. So yes, record only. Record and play, record only, yes. Yeah, that's really weird. It's not actually counting in, even though I set it to count in. I don't understand why that's happening right now, so I can't fucking help you on that. I've never encountered that before. So as you can hear there, I messed up a couple of times, like I got off of the metronome. And so this is where you get to the tricky thing of, since I set it to a greater number of possible record points, it's if I'm off on this, it might sound like natural rhythm, or it might just sound off. Whereas if I had had it set just to eighth notes, it might have bumped those wrong notes back into a better sounding place. So it's a tug of war in terms of like how much you want the timing correct to play into recording. Again, my suggestion is whenever possible, don't use it. Unless you want your shit to sound like just really, really locked in, and sometimes not that swinging. Oh, so you see that? I hit play start. So you see that sounds even crazier and more offbeat than ever before, actually. Even when I was freestyling it by hand, it sounded almost a little better than that did. Because now, even if accidentally, like, if my hands had landed in a natural human time, that might be somewhat skewed, because even though it's still going on to a very small place on that grid, because it's 30-second note triplets, it still might be weird. So that could be a gift or a curse. For the sake of this demonstration of crafting a track, though, we're going to have to go with something. So I am just going to do it with the timing correct. Well, actually, no, I'm going to do the cheating way. We're going to end on the last way that I could show you how to do this, simply for the sake of having shown you every way. So back to the sequence. I already erased. Yes, I already erased and undid. So now I'm going to do that by holding the note repeat and then pressing the buttons. So that way I kind of have a physical relationship with where they stop and start. It's not based on me hitting it to the metronome. It's based on actually the note repeat hitting the buttons for me. Now, as you can see, since I have it set to 30-second note triplets, the note repeat goes crazy. Now that could be really cool for some of the probably like, you know, fucking toothbuster crazy industrial techno shit that you might be doing with this. That would sound really good. But for a more traditional kind of beat, which is what we're trying to nail out here, I don't want that. So I'm going to go back to time incorrect. I'm going to set that shit back to eighth notes. And go back to my sequence. I'm going to test this out. And with the, you know, not very sensitive pads and whatever, that can be difficult. It doesn't always work out. Also, for some reason, the last time I recorded, the count-in metronome finally worked, so I don't know what the fuck is going on with that. But yeah, we're gonna try this out one more time with that cheat. See, that time the metronome didn't count in. What is happening? And neither did it that time. But like, how will I get it to do it? You know what the difference is? I think it might depend on whether, because like I'm trying to hit play and record at the same time. I think if I hit play even slightly before record, it just starts playing and then also preparing to record. So I'm going to hit record and then play. Hold note repeat. So you remember originally I was talking about doing a 16 bar thing. So that was 16 bars. I'm going to go ahead and actually reset the track parameters. So params, sequence loop, sequence length, still at 96. We're going to take that back about 80. In fact, exactly 80. Back to sweet 16. I'm going to hit do it. And now this should loop up. So yeah, you see, it looped up. So I've got that third drum sample, well, really the first one we chopped. And we haven't used that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a second sequence so that now I can show you how to transition from one sequence to another. So we can start to do that thing I mentioned earlier of kind of building two songs inside of the unit. And I always think that that's a fun thing. Technically for recording purposes and especially for using effects, I recommend building things inside of your audio software as much as possible because that will give you the ability to, put effects on each level and EQ each level much more meticulously, especially with a unit like this, which is not necessarily like very advanced in terms of its sound technology or its bit rate or anything like that. I mean, it's a decent sound, but like, you know, MPCs are known for having this kind of grimy, like chopped up digital sound, but this one more so than almost any of them. This is one of the most basic entry level models. But it served me incredibly well. I mean, it's good. You can do a fuck ton with it. Obviously, as you can see from the fact that I'm still discovering functions, I never began to even get close to hitting the limits of the possibilities creatively with this. So don't worry about that. But yeah, in terms of sound, it's probably better overall to record layer by layer into your audio software and use this as just sort of an instrument that you're layering on top of itself. But it's really fun to just do stuff entirely in unit. Most of my first, Shadow Trash tapes, from probably Fire Songs on the computer up through with some exceptions, all the main beat and sample based ones, that Deep Stargate Potion, Thrift Sleepover Spree, and then up through like King Poppy Confessions of an American Beatmaker. Those were all done in unit on this, with almost nothing layered in recording software. And in fact, like if you go to that very first tape, Fire Songs on the Computer, I think the first 10 minutes of that or so are all just a series of sequences that I built into one save state on this, and just played them straight through. So like, yeah, that's just one uninterrupted performance, all done just within this. And that's really fun and is really satisfying and is a good way to test your way around this machine and to figure out what makes it tick and what you can get away with. But yeah, not necessarily what I recommend always, but I'm going to show it to you now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sequence and then go down to sequence 2, unused, as you can see. As sequence 1 deserves a name because I recorded something on it. Wow. Now, are they going to be the same tempo? No. So you see, now that I'm on sequence 2, unused, if I hit tap tempo, it's at 120 BPM. So I'm going to find out what the tempo on that first sequence was, tap tempo, 136.2. So I want to change to that since this drum sample is in the same rhythm as the first sequence. Now, this is kind of silly because really, if everything's going to be in the same tempo, you could just build a very long sequence and then just fucking do the transition from one set of sounds into another on there. But just, this is strictly for the sake of showing you functions on here. You could even make sequence 2 like a transition sequence that is very rhythmless and ambient, and then have sequence 3 be in a different tempo. Or you can scale down tempos, across a series of sequences so that they progressively get a little bit slower so you don't quite notice it and it's not jarring. There are a lot of options for how to do that, but in this case, we're just going to do same tempo straight through from sequence 1 to sequence 2. So that was what, 132.6? Double check. 136.2. Okay, so tap tempo. Not actually tapping it. Sometimes if it's a big discrepancy, you can just kind of tap it a few times and try to get it up to about the correct area and then do a precision from there. But in this case, since it was only 16.2 BPMs, I'm just going to go ahead and do it by scrolling the wheel and holding tap tempo. So now that's at 136.2, and I'm going to check the metronome, count in, and I am going to do it differently for sequence 2. Sequence 1, we did very locked down. Sequence 2, I'm going to do loose. I'm going to freestyle it. I'm going to turn off the timing correct. I am still going to allow the metronome to count in. So I'm just going to kind of do that. Just keep it really simple. So record, play. Oh yeah, I forgot. Each sequence will originally be, I'm going to hit erase and then 12 levels. Each sequence will initially be programmed with, if you go into parameters, they will always start out with a sequence length of 2 bars. Why? God only knows. To test stuff out just seemed like a simple thing. Better than 1 measure? I don't know. But I'm going to set this to another 16. And yes, So yeah, that was just gonna keep. I was just gonna keep layering those same drums on top of themselves forever until those 2 bars sounded so fucking busy that it would be like audio vomit. So yeah. So I already clicked do it to that. So go back to the sequence. Sequence 2. Actually, that metronome's fucking throwing me off. I didn't want that. In fact, so I'm back. I clicked metronome. Gonna go back to in record, and then no. I'm sorry that I'm not like showing the screen on every possible occasion that I could show the screen, but I figure when I'm repeating some of these things, you probably get the gist of it at this point. So back to sequence. So as you can see, not a perfect loop. That human time got a little off, but I don't really fucking need this shit to loop up. I don't need that. I don't need that jazz. Looping up can go to fucking hell. Actually, actually, for the sake of building our track later, I kind of will want it to loop when we add layers. So I'm just going to go and fucking cheat on that again. Oh my god! Erase, undo. All right. Oh yeah, I needed to change like literally anything else. So I'm going to do metronome in record again. Yes. So that was 16 bars, and actually you just heard it go back to the first bar. So that looped up perfectly. Thanks, metronome. I kind of hate you, but I kind of love you. And I'm actually not going to mess with the metronome anymore, because now that we have the drums recorded, that's our metronome now. So fuck everything else. And so now we want more samples. That's what we want. We've got drums. We want to do some fucked up shit with them. So I'm going to go back to sequence 1, because that's the starting off point. Those are our defining 16 bars right now. I'm going to go mode, record. Oh, the battery on my phone is getting low. I got to get a charger over here. Okay, and you know what? I'm gonna pour some Franz